This week on JEB and Flow, we are talking about patience. Patience as a skill that can be developed and should be developed. We also will get into some of the negative health effects that are associated with impatience. How often do you catch yourself losing patience throughout the day? Would you even know? So part one is just paying attention and noticing that. And guess what? If you are feeling impatient throughout the day, you are being given more opportunities to practice patience as a skill. And as we all know, if you want to develop a skill, you got to practice it. So be grateful for all of the opportunities that you are being given every day to get better at the skill of patience. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to JEB and Flow here on the Street Parking Podcast channel. Let's start off with 3 deep breaths. So wherever you are, if possible, close your eyes, sit up straight, nice tall spine, take a deep breath in, and a slow breath out. So now you know the feeling, make it deeper, breathe in, expand your belly. Breathe out slow. Last one, fill your belly. Expand your rib cage. Lift your chest. Take another little sip of air in at the top. Let it out. If your eyes are closed, you can blink them open. And here we are. So, patience. Patience is something I've been thinking a lot about, probably because I need to exercise more of it and practice it. But I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to share my thoughts and some of the stuff I've read and hopefully qualify the necessity to practice patience. Because patience is a skill. It's something that can and should be developed, conditioning your body to be a patient person, a more patient person. There are health benefits to it. There are psychological benefits to it. And the opposite of patience, impatience, also has its own negative implications. If you're listening to this or watching this and already you're growing impatient and you're like, he better get to the point or I'm going to turn this off. You need this more than anyone. So stick around and listen. I will try to stay on task and keep things moving, but bear with me. So patience really is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, suffering without getting angry or upset. So it's the capacity to be able to be in a situation in which you don't have any control over the situation in that moment and getting upset about it. That's like the dictionary definition of patience. Now, I didn't look up impatience because I kind of have my own definition of that. Impatience is refusal to accept reality, or at least getting upset about having to accept reality. But that's what it is. You're in a situation, this is what is happening right now. And an impatience with that is refusing to accept it or getting mad about the situation that you can't change. So if you think about what impatience really is, it's almost pretty childish. And I am super impatient. So I'm not directing this towards you. I'm in a lot of ways directing it inward towards me. I'm very immature when I grow impatient because I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this, And it is what it is. Honestly, I mean, that's if patience were a saying, that would be it. Hey, it is what it is, I came across a really cool quote, and I like it a lot. I don't know if I'll really attach a lot of relevance to what I'm talking about, but I just loved it and I wanted to share it. It's from Leo Tolstoy. He says, the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Napoleon Hill said something similar with patience, perseverance, and perspiration are the key ingredients to success. And I love that. But patience and time, we could argue on a quantum level, time doesn't actually even exist. Our understanding of time is very limited. So we can take that out of the question. But all we know is that there is time that elapses between what we want and where we are in a lot of situations. And there's not much we can do about the time. Our perception of time, we can manipulate it a little bit, and we've talked about that before, but patience, having patience over time, that can change a lot of things. So let's just get into a real brief kind of bit of, I guess the science behind it all. But essentially what happens is that when you lack patience, when you feel impatient in your body, it's a stress response. So your body releases cortisol. Cortisol gets a bad rap, and it does a lot of good things for us, but it is the stress hormone, right? So what happens is that we get into a state of frustration. Our old friend, the amygdala, starts getting upset because we are sensing, in some ways, perhaps danger or some kind of a threat. Usually it's to our own ego, but the amygdala sends a little hormone over to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sends a little hormone over to the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland then sends another hormone down to stimulate the adrenal glands, which then release cortisol. And so what happens when cortisol is released? Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your mouth gets dry, right? Your palms might get a little sweaty, your muscles start to tense up. And when that happens, certain other things shut down, like your digestion, your reproduction, other unnecessary systems in a state of stress. So when you are in a state of elevated cortisol, if you find that you are getting impatient throughout the day, multiple times per day, that's what's happening. And so when the hypothalamus is sending this hormone down to the adrenals, it's then unable to perform its other functions. And it's a very, very important gland. It's kind of thought of as the link between the endocrine system, all of your glands and hormones, and your central nervous system, which sends signals all over through your body, from your brain to your muscles to your organs and all that kind of thing. So if the hypothalamus is not behaving the way that it should, bad things can happen. Certain bodily processes don't happen the normal way or the optimal way. So the reason, for example, why you would feel a dry mouth when you have this stress response is because the hypothalamus actually regulates your fluid and electrolyte balance and thirst. Similarly, it will affect digestion and things like that, body composition. So I hope in a general way, without going super deep into it, that would qualify the need to practice patience beyond just like, oh, I should just be a more patient person because I'll be less of an unpleasant person to be around, but actually there are physiological effects that take place, and they can become chronic over time if you're every day sitting in traffic, waiting in lines, being on hold, and you're getting really upset about the fact that is the reality of the moment. It will take its toll on your body. So back to what I originally was saying, patience is a skill. It is a skill that can be learned, it can be developed, and it must be practiced. And there's a number of ways that you can practice patience. So let's talk about that, because that is your action item for the week, is to practice patience. Search for opportunities to practice patience. So like standing in line, being on hold, waiting for somebody to show up, waiting for somebody to leave, waiting for someone to stop talking, all of that could potentially be a time in which you're feeling impatient. So the first thing is to notice, right? The first thing is to pay attention. The first thing is to when that happens, think, oh, okay, this is one of those times I am feeling impatient. If you've noticed that your muscles start clenching up, your heart starts beating faster, your breathing gets shorter, your mouth starts getting a little bit dry, that's frustration, that's anger, that is impatience. Those are all signs that should tell you, okay, here's when I need to practice. Now is my opportunity to practice patience. So what do? You try to relax your muscles. You try to deepen and slow down your breathing. Maybe you try to change your focus. So if you're sitting in traffic, for example, you pay attention to breath. You might pay attention to something that you've never noticed before, like look out your window and notice a tree or a building or another car, and just focus on that and think about that and enjoy what it is that you're taking in. Right? Shift your focus away from the thing that is causing you to be frustrated. If possible, move. Right? So if you can move around slowly, deliberately, even if it's just slowly walking around in a circle, pay attention to the connection with your feet to the floor. How does it feel under your heel? How does it feel under your big toe? How does it feel under the outer edge of the ball of your foot? Think about all of that stuff. Focus on that. That will allow you to kind of come down from that period, or that state really of being impatient, and try to appreciate the present moment. It's simple. It's not easy, especially if it's, impatience in a lot of ways is kind of selfish. We think that our needs are more important, and everything that's stopping me from getting my needs is less important, and it's in my way, and it just needs to get out of the way. The last thing that I'll say is that if you find that you are feeling impatient multiple times a day throughout the day, what you're being given is multiple opportunities to practice patience and to develop that skill. Why would you be given so many of those opportunities in a day? Probably because there is an urgency for you to develop that skill. That is my belief. So the more impatient that you feel like you are getting, recognize the bigger the opportunity you have, the more opportunity you are being given to develop that skill. And the more practice you get, the better you get. So you get really, really, really good at being patient. So that's what I want you to practice this week. Just seek out opportunities that you can practice patience. I love you. Talk to you soon.